Hey everybody, Alexa Zepp here with the Daily Racing Form to go over a pick sequence for this Saturday, July 27th. And I'm very excited. We're going to be looking at Saratoga, and I'm actually going to be heading out there for the first time since 2018. So I can't wait. If you're out there too, come say hey. And this pick three is ending with the Jim Dandy. So it's kind of an interesting sequence in my opinion because the first two races are a little bit volatile, a lot of chance for some prices to come in, and the Jim Dandy seems pretty straightforward. So I'm going to try to lock in some value and then seal the deal with an easy pick in the last. So it starts with race 8. It is a $100,000 maiden special weight for fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and up, going 5.5 furlongs on the turf. There are 3 first-time starters in here, including the also eligibles. Like I said, this race looks pretty tough, so I'm going to spread in here. I'll be using the number 1, Scarlet Poppy from Wesley Ward's barn. She debuted going 1 1/16, which is a pretty big ask on debut. And she got bumped, but that distance just was too much for her anyways. Her next out was 6 furlongs and quite a bit better, getting second place. I imagine she'll be setting the pace in this field. The number 2, Tipple, is a 12-1 morning line. This is a first-time starter from Linda Rice's barn. She's by constitution out of Moore Hennessy. 3 out of her 7 siblings have won on debut. 5 out of the 7 are winners. She has had 3 back-to-back bullet works, and the last 2 in particular were especially quick. Number 4, Arisu from Chad Brown's barn with Irad aboard. She's coming off a very long layoff, hasn't run since the Saratoga meet last year. She's familiar with the course though, and since her 2 starts were over it, Chad is 25% for having them ready off these long layoffs. He's also finally getting her where he's been wanting her all along because her first 2 starts were rained off, and she's finally going to get this turf debut. Number 5, Aunt Nona, is 10-1 morning line and has run once, going 5 furlongs at Aqueduct. She showed early speed in that debut. I watched the replay, and she really didn't get a bad trip by any means, but she also didn't have a clear path to advance in the stretch, which can be a lot to overcome for a horse in their first race. So, in my opinion, she looked just as good as Scarlet Poppy in that race with less experience. Number 6, Satin Blue, 10-1 morning line. Sharp is switching her back to the turf from the dirt, and he wins 24% of the time when he makes this move. This is also a move he's been wanting to do for a while, as her last 2 starts have been rained off the turf. So I see a really consistent, strong progression here from a horse who's just developing into her prime. She's been raced into shape now and has a strong workout last week to support it. Race 9 is allowance optional claiming, going 1 1/16 on the turf for 3-year-olds. I'm going to use the number 1, Sea Singer. This is a long shot in here, 12-1 morning line. He debuted in America in the grade 3 at Del Mar last September, and it was just too tough a spot for him. And he was also a little bit green, lugging in the stretch, and he's really matured in his last 2 starts, or his 2 most recent starts this year. And his buyers reflect that maturity. He continues to improve every time. He's stepping back from stakes company, and I think the fast pace suits him well, and he should have something to run at the end. I'm also using number 2, Main Beach. This horse is coming off a win at this distance for Chad Brown. They spent over $500,000 on this horse back in 2022 as a yearling, so that speaks a lot for what they thought he was going to be able to do. He did win his last race at Monmouth, even though he was changing leads in the stretch. So that says a lot about we haven't seen his ceiling yet, and I imagine Chad has been working on this with him, and he also gets Irad aboard for the first time today. Number 8, West Hollywood, has run 2 times in the U.S., and both have been pretty impressive. He has early pace and stamina. He won at 1 1/8 and got second at 1 1/16. I really like his 4:47 work over this turf course here a week ago. I'd be really surprised if this horse wasn't involved in the early pace, and I would also be surprised if he wasn't on the board at the end. And finally, number 12, Risk Tolerance. This horse has only been out once, but it was at this distance, and he won with an 84 buyer, which tops anyone else's turf numbers in here. I think he's going to get the fast pace to track, and if he just repeats his last effort, he's got a good shot at winning again. And finally, race 10, the feature, the grade 2 Jim Dandy Stakes, going 1.125 miles on the dirt. It's a small field, but we have a lot of familiar faces in here. We have Sierra Leone, Seize the Gray, and Fierceness. This will be Fierceness's first start since being a very disappointing favorite in the Kentucky Derby. We have Seize the Gray, who won the Preakness and then bounced in the Belmont. But that Belmont effort was more consistent with the rest of his lifetime figures. So it really does beg the question of if he was just really aided by the wet, muddy track in the Preakness and if he truly belongs at this level. I tend to lean towards him being aided by the track conditions on Preakness Day. And finally, Sierra Leone, as we know, lost the Derby by a nose and the Belmont by less than 2 lengths to Dornoch, who has since come back to capture the Grade 1 Haskell at Monmouth last week. So I once again am all in on Sierra Leone. You know, he's had issues with lugging in, and there are the risks of him needing the trip as a deep closer. But considering there's only 5 other contenders in here, there shouldn't be a whole lot of traffic problems. Also, the pace just really sets up for him. Seize the Gray, Fierceness, and Pony Express are all fast, early pace horses. And so he's bound to have a fast pace to run at. And unless Fierceness shows us his Florida Derby run, you know, and as long as Sierra Leone doesn't get in his own way, I think he should take this race pretty easily. So he will be the favorite. I am singling him, which is why I spread on some bigger prices in the first 2. So I'm hoping we can lock in maybe a couple 10-to-1s and then close it out with Sierra Leone. It is a $20 ticket, pretty modest. So good luck this weekend. Good luck with all of your wagers, and especially if you play this pick 3 with me.